Hello, and welcome to the Gonzales Mitchell Show. I'm Clay Mitchell.
And I'm Patrick Gonzales.
And today, Patrick and I are going to talk about the first night of the Democratic National Convention, the speeches that happened, the events that surrounded it, and give you our thoughts on that. Uh, with that, Patrick, I have one question for you. What's going on? What's going on? What's going
Ooh,
on?
this is a groovy party. Clay, my reaction to last night, watching it from a visual kind of artistic standpoint, I thought it was great. The speakers were good. Visually, they had it kind of choreographed and laid out well. I saw Hillary Clinton for the first time in a long time give a kind of an extended speech, and I thought she was really good. As a
Yes.
total compliment, she looked younger to me than she has in the last 8 years. I thought everyone did well. The only part, and it wasn't anything I visually looked at and saw last night. It was more of a subliminal thought, which was there just seemed to be some real sharp incongruence, disconnect. For the last couple weeks, some of the hype out of the Democratic Party is that President Biden belongs on Mount Rushmore next to Lincoln and Washington and Jefferson and Teddy R. And
Right.
okay, that's fine. I mean, politics is full of hyperbole, but the actions didn't quite square. If that's the case and that's how they felt, then why wasn't the whole kind of convention really built around Joe and celebrating his term in office? Um, Mount Rushmore is a high goal. We haven't had when did they build it about 70 years ago in the early 40s, I
Yeah.
think. Haven't had
Early 40s.
anyone
Yes.
added since. And I dig it, but he didn't show up till almost midnight. He showed up and gave a speech. To my eye and ear, there's a little too much anger, a little too much that kind of negative emotion in it, but it was fine. And then he hops on a plane and heads on out to California. Seems to me like he got the bum's rush instead of put on Mount Rushmore. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think whether you agree with Joe Biden, whether you like him or hate him, he's the president of the United States. And whether you're president of the United States, vice president of the United States, a current office holder, or a former office holder, you are due the respect of that office. It's my view that he should have been shown in prime time, 9, 10 o'clock. I kept hearing that there were certain things being delayed. There were supposed to be 4 or 5 speeches and James Taylor singing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna be like George McGovern in 1972 appearing on at 2 o'clock in the morning giving his speech." That's just, I thought the Democrats learned a lesson with that. And this was supposed to be symbolic of the torch passing from Biden to Kamala Harris. And if it was any later, they'd have to relight that torch in order for him to hand it to her. I thought I thought it was disrespectful. Although I will tell you this, Patrick, I agree with you. Where was that Joe Biden 6 months ago? That was a great speech. He gave it with great fervor. He would be a little angry at times, but yeah, maybe he should be angry right now. But I thought it was a well-given speech. It was just too late, and I apologize to him if there was any disrespect on behalf of the Democrat Party to that. I just thought that was unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of George McGovern, I go back to 1972. We touched a little briefly on this yesterday. And
Right.
Clay, as much as I love politics, I ultimately see everything through at a human level. And I will always see Joe Biden through the filter of December 18th, 1972. On election day in 1972, Richard Nixon landslided the heck out of George McGovern. George McGovern, a war hero, by the way. That often gets forgotten
Right.
with history, but definitely a great American that served his country. And in that landslide in the state of Delaware, Nixon beat George McGovern 60-40. Actually, McGovern didn't. There were a couple other candidates. He actually beat him by 23 points. Republican Nixon defeats Democrat McGovern by 20 plus points in Delaware. At the same time, incumbent Republican senator in Delaware, Caleb Boggs, is up against this young rascal, county council member from Newcastle County, Delaware, named Joe Biden. And on election night, 29-year-old Democrat Joe Biden defeats incumbent Republican Caleb Boggs by a point and a half, alongside Richard Nixon's Republican obliteration in Delaware. That's quite a political feat and accomplishment. That hasn't happened too many times, I would venture to guess, in American history. So we fast forward about 3 weeks, November 20th, I think it is. Joe Biden celebrates his 30th birthday, and boom, he's now eligible to be sworn into the Senate. Man, he's got to be riding high. A month later, literally a week before Christmas, 1972, his wife, his 1-year-old daughter, his 2-year-old son, and his three-year-old son are involved in an horrific automobile accident, killing his wife and his 1-year-old daughter. So he goes from a period of in 6 weeks to being at the zenith of life to a week before Christmas being at the depths of hell. I can't imagine the human toll that took on him personally. And everything subsequent to that, when I have observed Joe Biden, whether it was running for president for the 1988 nomination or the 2008 nomination, or being head of the Judiciary Committee during the 90s, through the Clarence Thomas nomination and all that stuff, I've always seen, whether I agree or disagree with his political position, I've always seen Joe Biden through that human lens. And I just felt like last night didn't quite live up to the hype. Someone that belongs on Mount Rushmore, in my opinion, deserved a little better than last night.
I agree with you. The a lot of people that are alive today have no frame of reference to visualize Joe Biden at 29 or 30 years old, let alone even remember the horrific accident that happened 52 years ago. He did deserve much better than what the party and how the party treated him last night. Talking about respect, there was a moment that I saw where Jesse Jackson came out to the stage. I saw an old clip of him back in the 1968 convention with his big afro, and he was, with his mustache and talking. But to see that last night when he came out, even though he couldn't really speak, uh, showed another symbol of the passing of the guard again. And whether you agree with Jesse Jackson, whether you disagree with Jesse Jackson, like him or hate him, he deserved some respect as a civil rights leader. Patrick, as you'll recall, April 1968, he was on that little walkway sort of balcony at the Lorraine Motel
In
when
Memphis,
Dr
Tennessee.
when Martin Luther King was shot and killed. There's an infamous photo where they're pointing in the direction of where I guess James Earl Ray was. That was a moment frozen in time. That's another symbol seared in the heads of our generation and prior generations. And I'm glad that he got to have that moment before the DNC last night. That was a recognition that I think was well deserved, and I thought that the DNC did a great job with that. And again, it was in prime time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would venture to guess that the Reverend Jackson and I, we kind of see the world differently. We certainly see, I think,
Sure.
the world of politics differently. But
Sure.
dude, let me tell you, that touched my heart. That did. I mean, as you and I get a little bit older, I'm going to be 35 next month. You're going to be 32,
I'll
and
be
as we,
32.
yeah, right. But no, seriously, I just
Yeah.
absolutely, I could feel the joy and just love inside me, and it was real. It wasn't manufactured. I mean, that's just how I felt. And again, it's just a human reaction to a human being that I have observed. I don't know Reverend Jackson from Adam's off Ox, but I've watched him. You talk about the 68 convention, the 84 convention when he runs for president, the 88 convention when he runs for president. He's an important part of American history. And to see him, it was wonderful, Clay.
It was iconic. It really was. As far as the protests outside, I didn't see much of that. I think a few people were arrested for trespassing over a gate. They weren't a part of the bigger crowd. It didn't appear to me. I
Right.
think the next march, big march, is on Thursday night when Vice President Harris that formally accepts the nomination, and we'll see how that happens. But so far, it's been a peaceful event. It's nothing like 1968. Thank
No,
goodness.
so far, not at all. And they say, Clay, that the sincerest imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And when I think of Jesse Jackson, the politician, I go back, and it was sometime in the '80s, because it was on SNL,
Right.
and Eddie Murphy was doing his Jesse Reverend Jackson impersonation, and the line that sticks with me and has for 40 years is, "The issue in the Caribbean, it's caring about human beings." And you know what? Caring about human beings really is the bottom line.
It is. Uh, Patrick, what'd you learn in class today?
Clay, I learned I got to do my homework and not go out drinking the night before, but I'm never going to make that mistake again.
I thought you would have learned that lesson yesterday, but
Well, I have a short memory. Sorry.
I have to say, for those of you who enjoy listening to this content and watching this content, please like us and follow us on Facebook and on YouTube. With that being said, it's time to say goodnight, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick, and we'll see you all real soon.